I find it very unlikely that this was an accidental fall, and there's a couple of different reasons for that.
Former St. Louis Police Homicide Detective Sergeant Mike Guzzi has investigated hundreds of deaths. He agreed to review Shirley Newman's with the understanding he's not second-guessing the St. Louis County investigation, ruling this an accident.
You certainly wouldn't expect a quote-unquote neat exit on an accidental falling. Normally, if you see something like this happen, the whole railing gives way because it wasn't properly moored to its surroundings.
He believes this damage took a tremendous amount of force.
If you look at where the damage is to 4 of the poles, it's right at about the level where a human being standing at the top rail and kicking out would hit that pole. So if you dislodge them from their moorings, which you can see there, by kicking them one at a time, they'd pop out, and as the photos indicate, fairly uniform damage. The easiest explanation to explain how all this happened is somebody kicked those railings out, and then they threw the body out there.
He says they because he believes it would take the strength of 2 people to move someone of Shirley Newman's 218-pound weight.
For her to have enough momentum to trip and then wind up going through this thing, she'd have to be running through the house to get out the back door to hurl herself at this barrier, which I just find incredibly improbable.
We had questions about Mrs. Newman's deadly fall, so we put a similar railing through a non-scientific test. Our results, surprising. We acquired a similar railing made by the same manufacturer named in a now dismissed lawsuit over the fall. 2 Fox 2 broadcast engineers installed it in our studio garage.
The 2 straps going underneath it.
Structural engineer Eric Marlinghouse of Quality Testing and Engineering Incorporated then designed a test. Using his 17 years of experience in the materials testing field, he designed a moving test to show the possible outcomes under several scenarios.
Right there.
Our dynamic test will include 218 pounds in motion.
Perfect.
Hard weight surrounded by thin padding to duplicate a body.
Check that.
We attach the weight to a pendulum that will swing into the rail.
Hang on.
Engineer Marlinghouse first wanted a starting point. He used an industrial scale to measure force, so we would know how far back to pull our weight from the rail to duplicate a real-life impact. He weighed himself, 220, just about like Newman. Then he measured
Here I go.
the force of his fall.
117 pounds of force. Here I go.
His force ramming into it.
I only put 288 pounds, but roughly a quarter more than my weight.
And it hurt.
It stung, and I did hold back a little bit forward.
And kicking it.
201.
Now to test the rail. We start with the estimated force from a 218-pound person falling backwards because of one theory from retired homicide detective Sergeant Mike Guzzi.
If she were to back into this and the railing gave way and she just went over, that would explain why she's laying on the ground in the manner that she is.
I'm gonna pull back the ram about 5 inches, and this should simulate her accidentally tripping and falling backwards into it.
Based on Eric's calculations, he measures the distance appropriate for our first test.
And we're good. Let her go.
Nothing. He uses a level to confirm no damage. Next, we test a theory Detective Sergeant Guzzi believes to be less likely, but still possible because of autopsy findings on Newman's head and face. While the medical examiner did not find anything obvious on the outside, she did note hidden bruising under Newman's skin.
Now, if she went through face first, you could see where a post could have inflicted this damage to her subdural tissue. But then again, if she went through face first, how did she wind up on her back with her head facing out? I mean, this was not an Olympic dive that she was performing here.
An attorney who was once suing the railing company believes Newman could have created more momentum if she tripped on a threshold. Based on calculations from Eric's earlier pretest, we pull it back 13 inches, what our engineer says should duplicate 288 pounds of force.
This is the most that an individual can do by themselves.
The railing holds.
I don't think the balusters are damaged a bit, but from my angle, I can clearly see that the bottom rail has bent itself out. However, a person still would not have fallen through this.
That was worst case.
That was the worst case. That was with me launching myself at it.
Now that it's slightly damaged, we just try to break through it, pulling back our weight 36 inches.
Go.
About 500 pounds of force still did not break through. We try again, this time swinging it back as far as 2 men can pull it, 65 inches away.
Go.
We calculated the speed at 9 miles per hour.
If you had an NFL linebacker that knows how to really hit it, they might be able to do this on their own. It's the bottom rail that failed.
It's that bottom rail bend that allowed the vertical rails to break free.
Looking at this, I'd have to say what was in the pictures, that was fabricated.
Also a theory of retired Detective Sergeant Mike Guzzi, who said,
We're talking about a 77-year-old woman who weighs 218 pounds. She's got a bad back and uses a mechanical assistance to walk any distance. It's highly unlikely that she pulled off a Jesse Owens-style sprint here.
what about kicking them out? Could that create similar bends to the vertical bars?
Here I go.
He tries kicking lower.
It pretty much did what I thought it was going to do. It bent right where we found it bent from kicking it out, which is what I theorized happened to this to start with. But again, I'm just looking at what could have caused this damage, and that's what I feel is the most likely explanation.
Hupp's attorney Nick Williams did not respond to requests for comment. After Hupp's arraignment, he said he was concerned about sensational attention distracting from Hupp's pleas of innocence. St. Louis County police detectives are currently reviewing Newman's fall. Next, more about the life insurance given to Pam Hupp after Betsy Faria died and why the fight for that money is not over.